Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily, and guess what? It is the 13th day in the month of December 2022. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And from Abuja, good morning. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Straight into the papers this morning, and Stephen Wosu joins us this morning. He is publisher, editor-in-chief, the Nigerian Express. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Nice to be here for a long break.
Yeah, I mean, you ran away for long enough.
Well, your road was the cause.
Well, let's go straight to it. You would readily identify with this. It's the front page of the Guardian newspaper we're starting with today. And look at it. 4 years after yuan swap deal, forex pressure mounts. And it's natural to wonder why. But then maybe the riders will help you get some perspective. Only 2.6% of imports from China funded with yuan swap auction in 4 years. Naira volatility, a major drawback in future negotiation. China accounts for over 25% of Nigeria's imports. Trade value climbs to 19.57 trillion naira since MOU was first signed. And currency exchange, good deal, but time for house cleaning, says Owo. 4 years after. Anyway, what's your take?
For me, I think there has to be a lot of enlightenment and a little more noise, or do I say, that needs to be made about this swap deal thing.
4 years after?
It's like it's still not popular with the importers and all those. Yes, we are still hooked on our dollar kind of thing. A lot of the trade we do is still denominated dollar, and people have a problem, whether you like it or not, converting. Like if you ask me now, say, what is the exchange rate naira to the yuan?
It won't come ready.
It won't come ready. But if you say dollar, pound, or something, is off the fingertips. So there's still this. I think the Chinese have been trying to get us in that direction, but I think we've not made enough. There's not enough enlightenment about it, or awareness that people. Because I know people who still do their imports from China. They still go source for dollar and start changing back to yuan or whatever, but to say instead of just doing that straight swap and all that thing, and then of course, what do we really have to swap? Is better. You're safer. You're more. How do I say? You feel more sure-footed when you have maybe the dollar or the pound or something, and then you can approach and buy anything. This swapping thing, many people are still to understand it, but I'm sure it's a lot easier than it's been made to appear if we can get a little more enlightenment on it.
Same thing. It seems to be the position of the federal government as well, because as of January this year, the Minister of Finance said the same thing. She said, as far as she was concerned, the currency swap between Nigeria and China has not worked the way Nigerians had expected.
Okay.
And of course, looking at the volume of imports of only 2.6% from China funded with yuan swap.
Meanwhile, we have heavy importation coming from China. So 2-point-something%. I mean, you can imagine. You can reduce all this, the current pressure we have on the naira and the dollar and everything, if we take some of the pressure off through this swap, because much of our imports also come from there. I guess maybe it's also, if you start suspecting fifth columnists, well, our people have gone to America, maybe they will talk to them, because there are two things on that trip that are not on the agenda, which we know are under Russia and China. So I hope, let's see what they go with when they go to all the African leaders have gone there. So let's see what they come away with.
And 19.5 trillion naira trade volume is certainly not in favor of Nigeria in terms of balance of trade.
Balance of trade, you have to have something to sell now, but what do we have to sell? So that's a problem. And that's why we say we need to begin to produce things in this economy, if not at least add value to our raw material in the least, so we can at least reduce, do some kind of, achieve some kind of balance on the trade deal in the trade, the balance of trade with China and all those things. But I mean, we are just import. Everything is imported. So
that's besides the many Chinese business interests in Nigeria. Most of the construction firms, they're in charge of it, and you could name a number of them as well. But let's leave that story. The Daily Times, catches my fancy this morning, particularly because of the big story. It says politicians buying PVCs from voters. INEC raises alarm. On the front page of yet another this morning, you find that a man based in Lagos was caught with PVCs
in
buried.
the soakaway.
Yes, in soakaway.
you see, that is why my fear, I'm not really much. I wish I could see it otherwise. I'm not really as excited or as certain as INEC is on this election. I believe sorry to say, the two old political parties might be up to some funny plans. Maybe not them alone, but I know there's something that just doesn't seem, is going rather too smooth about this election. Everybody say, yes, we've got the electoral act and all that, and it's as if it's like a fix all, one shot, one treatment, one dose treatment or something. One treatment fixes everything about this electoral act, and I'm not so comfortable with it. There's something.
You're not comfortable with the smoothness.
Yes.
But,
it's like Lagos when you're driving on the road and you suddenly see it smooth. You park and say, what is wrong? So that's
unfair. We all want things to work. Now it's working, but there's a problem.
I want it to work because the way the politicians are saying it, everybody is saying this electoral system, there will not be any rigging, there will not be. I'm just not too comfortable. If I were a politician at this moment, I would have a plan B in case something goes wrong. That's just it. But there is some pranks. There are some politicians that are still not convinced that this thing will go this smooth.
How can you say things are as smooth as you are saying when there is so much electoral violence already? Attacks on INEC facilities and those things?
No. That's another kettle of fish. The attack on INEC is, for me, I almost want to go with INEC on this. Some people actually want to intimidate INEC or make it seem like this election is not possible.
Okay, another one is the headline that Bukola just read, which is that some people do not want the voters to get their PVCs. It's on the front page.
And in line with that, are you saying that when individuals are caught with PVCs in bulk, we should ask the politicians certain questions?
Or the INEC?
It's INEC that like I know what it took me trying to get my own PVC. Somebody told me we have taken care of it, and I never saw it for so long. I had to. It's a process. So at least somebody releases those PVCs to the politician that is found with it. He didn't just go to INEC store and just carry them. He probably compromised somebody along the line, registered and just packed those PVCs with him. So that's why I just believe that there's something there are some shenanigans that the politicians are planning on the ground, which we haven't been able to place a finger on it. I just hope it does not derail, it does not compromise the elections eventually. That's my fear.
Just before we exit the Daily Times, there's another story just as important. Abortion story against military, fake and ploy to demoralize fighting forces as ascribed to the federal government. Well, until we dive into the story, we won't know who's really speaking on behalf of the federal government. But this story had been published by Reuters and the military had immediately denied it. What are your thoughts?
You see, we are in this business together. You could get a scoop, you could get a lead on something. It might be true, it might not be true. I'm not speaking for, I won't stand in the gap for Reuters, neither am I going to say federal government or the army are totally correct on this thing, because I haven't done my own independent investigation. I'm not in a position to do it now. But what I know is that sometimes there's always a fire somewhere once you see a smoke. So, but then maybe not as huge as the story, the Reuters story painted it to be. Or maybe it is. So, but then instead of just trying to prove, let's just get back into it and confirm whether there is really some element of truth in what was said, whether some people have been forced to procure abortion and all that kind of thing. It's not every person that gets impregnated by somebody they don't want that want to keep the pregnancy and all those kind of things. There are so many issues to look at. I don't want to jump into conclusions because I haven't been opportune to go deeper, but I think the ideal thing would be for an unbiased, a dispassionate interrogation of what is on ground. What these people we are getting, how are they living? It's not just good to see. It's not just enough to say, we are taking care of the IDPs and all that. We know even things meant for them get lost in transit, in the system, in the bureaucracy and all the whatever. Some are stolen, some are cornered, some are and all those kind of things. Even the medical. So there might just be other things that we're not saying. Okay. I think that's just my own. I think we should just do a dispassionate interrogation of the process, both the federal government, the military, and even Reuters themselves, to confirm that they were misled, because we've had instances where even the CNN was misled in what was happening in Africa. So it's not impossible, but just to say fake news and all that.
It's not enough, right?
It's not enough, yeah.
All right, so who's going to do the dispassionate interrogation of that story on abortions in IDP camps allegedly carried out by the military? Well, we'll find out. But Malpe, what do you have for us from the Abuja Inquirer, I believe?
Oh, well, we already looked at the Abuja Inquirer yesterday. Don't forget that it's a weekly paper. It comes out once a week. Now, take a look at this one, Leadership, also following up on stories of the election for you. Insecurity may disenfranchise 11 million voters in Southeast. Collection of new 930,000 PVCs in shaky start. Sit-at-home order, stores exercised in Anambra, Enugu, Imo. Ensure they get their PVCs, OB charges security agencies. It's a page 4 read for you there. Totally disturbing story, but given what we saw yesterday in Imo and the attack on the INEC headquarters in Imo, what are your thoughts about what may happen to voters in the Southeast, taking a look at this headline?
I just have one say there. I think irrespective of what we say about IPOB and all that, I think the system, the security, the military, everybody, they are not doing enough to ensure that people in the Southeast, voters registered in the Southeast, actually vote. I'm not comfortable with all this. Yes, what IPOB is doing is definitely going to disenfranchise a lot of people. It's going to scare away voters. In fact, I think the current edition of my own newspaper too is also on it. In fact, we narrowed it down on the Simon Ekpa, the guy that is causing the crisis. But the truth is that it's not just enough to sit back and say insecurity, unknown government. Come on, why do we have a military in place? We didn't say go there now and do a Scotch earth policy and then wipe out. You say there you've seen IPOP somewhere and you go and wipe out a whole community and all that. But I think we need to do a lot more to secure voters. It's when you say sit at home, it's as if there's even the federal government and the military have given up on this issue. The people in the Southeast are genuinely tired of sit at home. The only reason why they are not going out is that the government, the security apparatus, the government has not given them enough security. Because once you go out, you get shot and nothing happens. There's no protection for them to go out. Because you see people, call anybody in the South, they are tired of, they've never really been, most of the time, they've never really been part of this sit at home. It's just some ragtag army, or do I saw roughnecks that declare the seat at home and then enforce it? And then the security sits back and say, the Southeast, you're killing your economy, as if the people, if you get 10 Southeasterners, about 9 will tell you no to sit at home or whatever. If that misguided one or something is who, but he takes a gun and marches onto the street, and there's nobody to protect the citizenry. So they place it by sitting at home. It's not like they are in support of what Simon Ekpa and co are doing. Even Nnamdi Kanu today, if you ask me, is even not in support of this continuous build. But the monster he created has become a Frankenstein monster, and he can't really rein him in on certain things. But the truth is that this is going to rub off negatively on the Southeast. It's not, I think, the federal government should give the Southeasterners protection. That is what they need. They don't want intimidation. You see, the governor in Imo State is doing quite a lot. They go, he mobilizes, he empowers them, they counter these guys and stop them. But the truth is that only the effort he alone is doing is not enough. The government has to make up its mind that we need to check this. And it's not to check it by just wiping out villages and all those. There's a way you can, information, intelligence and all that, you can get rid of it. It's not just enough to sit at home and say, this sit at home is killing it and they won't vote. It now appears as if you really don't want them to vote. Yeah.
Very, very disturbing indeed, and it's a good thing that Leadership Newspapers is highlighting it. I'm going to take one more subject, which is a hot potato topic. We've seen this matter go to court, and this was at the conference organized by the Legislative Institute yesterday. Look at this. El Rufai to NAS, move VAT to exclusive list, pass state police bill. So it's still right there for you on the front page of the Leadership Newspapers. I do not know what you make of that. Should it be on the exclusive list? Should there be a vote to that? Because, I mean, Governor El Rufai is the governor, and we've seen just what has happened with the governor of Rivers State taking the federal government to court, or is it the FRS now, trying to determine who should be the collector of VAT, since it was neither on the exclusive list or the concurrent, or not the concurrent, it was, I think, on the residual list. Should it be on the exclusive? Should it be on the concurrent?
For me, I think it's
thought.
like calling for state police VAT on exclusive list is like speaking from both sides of the mouth, if you ask me. Because first of all, state police and all that were part of the issues the El Rufai committee. The committee El Rufai headed recommended for the APC government. They have done 7.5 years, going to the 8th year. They have not done anything about it. Then on the twilight of their administration, they are saying move it. Is this issue of passing the buck to me? You people had all of 8 years. Yes, it's the right thing to do. We have all come to agreement that, look, some level of, we need to break the behemoth that is the Nigerian police, at least give some kind of policing power to the sub-units and stuff, even if it's state police or local government police or whatever we need to do. We have come to agreement on that. But I think APC should hide his head in shame that he's talking about it now when he should have done it for all of 7 years. But that is as it goes. As for VAT, it can be either way. I think we just need to spell out where it should go. It's coming from the way that the wiki court case and all that. But it's also unfair that there are certain issues, which was, they kept citing the argument of beer. You sit in your place, you ban certain things, other people don't ban it because they think they have to make money from it. They now make the money, you want to share from that money. That is the anger that many of them have. Like, we're all getting drunk, killing our kidneys and all that, and then the little benefit that should come from that, our indulgence, some other person that is playing holier than that wants to be part of it. Let the joy in madness be known to the mad ones. Let us enjoy our. But that basically what he's saying is that where I agree with him is that we need to make specifically say this person should, this arm should, or this tier should collect it, or that tier should collect it. Let it be put in black and white. As far as police, I also agree with him. It's just that it's coming a bit late.
We'll leave it there for leadership newspapers.
And switch to This Nigeria newspaper today, and it's also talking about election security. Insecurity threatens 2023 general elections. That's the lead of This Nigeria this morning. And look at the riders. 3 gunmen killed after setting Imo INEC office on fire. Electoral body decries systematic attacks. Will support peaceful polls in Nigeria, British envoy assures. Well, we've looked at this same issue in various ways.
Yes.
Now it's honing in on insecurity and the attacks on the INEC offices that we stated the other time. When will there be an end to this? Especially given that, okay, on the one hand, Daily Times reported, the Daily Times reported that PVCs have been stolen. Leadership is saying in the Southeast, 11 million voters may be disenfranchised, and now insecurity threatens 2023 general elections on the front page of This Nigeria, and specifically mentions the attack on Imo State INEC office.
You know, where it scares me is that all this will be playing out, and then the Chief of Defense Staff will say, we are ready for this. The military is ready. Everybody is ready. That's why I told you I'm really concerned. Is it, you know, they say you tell how the day will be from the morning. So, I mean, we are heading to election, and you're telling us we are ready. And so we will all put our guards down and get to election day.
But this is the way it always happens,
we are
right?
not ready. So, because there are so many things happening that point to the fact that some people, whether we like it or not, are either don't want the election to hold, one, or are not too comfortable.
But Mr. Nwosu, this is not the first time we're having this. At every election cycle, there is always that threat. There is always elections insecurity scare over the years. That's the way it's always been. And the challenge is, why are we unable to arrest it? Yes, we always have security analysis, red, amber, green, or whatever it is. This is the way it's always been. And at the end of the day, elections go almost smoothly every time.
You see, smoothly is relative. There are so many things we just decide to, my people will say, let's just assume that everything that beat us in the night was mosquito. It's sometimes you just look at what has happened and say, okay, we can overlook this, let's just move on. Sometimes when people say they don't want to challenge the outcome of an election, it's not because they don't have issues. It's just, well, let's just move ahead and just get it done. But the truth is that things are just not getting, there's no enough guarantee that things, some people are just trying to mess up the system.
On who is this then? On who do we place this responsibility?
It can come from anywhere. It can come from anywhere, but I still insist that it can come from the politicians, it can come from IPOB, it can come from whoever. But the truth is that, like, there's this statement, although I've not seen where it was written, but many people attribute it to him all the time. Abacha say once an unrest goes on for more than 48 hours, the government is involved.
All right, look at under the picture, of course, the picture on the front page of This Nigeria hints at, is a picture of the Imo State INEC office that was attacked. But under that picture, you find 9th Assembly. Gbajabi Amila doubts completion of 1 billion naira constitution amendment exercise. And the writer says, Lawan begs El Rufai to help National Assembly lobby governors.
It's a question of this bulk person thing. You see, every whether 5th, 4th, 9th, 8th assembly, they go on this we call it jamboree, but they say no, this time around, when they wanted to do the electoral, what's it called, the electoral bill, electoral acts, everybody went around, although in the process they shot themselves in the foot. They even dealt with themselves while trying to deal with governors. But the thing is that, take the issue of local government autonomy. It's when the Senate president said, beg governors to beg Rufai to beg his colleagues. The state governors just talk to the state assembly, at a point, even some members of Norge were saying, we don't want autonomy. State assemblies were saying they didn't want autonomy because the governor didn't want it. So most of these things, when they say you need to third majority of the state assembly, it's just for the governors to agree. Once governor agrees, it will come through. So state budget, sometimes the governor submits it 2 weeks later,
so the
it's
governors
ready.
are the lords of the manor.
So, I mean, come on. So, and you know, our democracy is we're still coming in from this, do I say paternal, how do I say it? Monarchical kind of arrangement. I don't know, background that you always look for, irrespective of what the book says. You look for one person to give you directive.
It's very interesting that you put it that way. One just wonders whether or not another 1 billion naira bill is not coming in the next budget for another
Constitution review.
They will carry it over and continue the thing. It's somebody's oil
someone
block.
will need to answer some questions.
Movement without motion.
Thank you.
All right, let's turn our attention now to Daily Trust newspapers, and it looks another issue on the front burner. And that's the big story now. Despite DSS ultimatum, petrol scarcity persists in states. Let's take a look at the riders. Products sell for 310 naira in Kaduna, Kano. Others. Queues ease in Lagos, Abuja. Marketers seek price control, deregulation. DSS begins secret operations. Now, after the ultimatum, we've had a guest on the program say that, look, it's an empty threat and it's going nowhere. And we're seeing it play out now. Even after, the regulatory agency went round to compel those who ought to do the needful to do the needful. Even this rider doesn't adequately capture what's happening in Lagos, because it's not all in all filling stations that you can find petrol easily, and you can confirm that as a Lagosian.
As I was
but how are you weighing in on all of this?
I almost ran into. I had two close shaves with people. Fuel queues. In fact, okay, the NNPC, understandable. The NNPC stations are probably the only ones that still sell fuel at the 160, 170 rate, maybe with the exception of a few major marketers. Every other person is selling as the spirit moves him. So, and it's now a question of that's why I said DSS. I didn't want them messing there, because DSS and to a large extent the road safety are some of the only two security agencies that I have a lot of respect. They have a lot of credibility with me. I mean, you understand? When the DSS says something, I take it. When they give you a position, I say these ones are. I don't know why, but it's been consistent for some time. They have not disappointed me. But immediately I heard this, I said, this is somebody's business. If it's not profitable for him, there is no amount of law you make, an ultimatum you give him that will make him open and sell. I mean, if I get fuel and my cost is X, is 20 naira, and I must sell at 22 to recover, you cannot force me to sell at 15. Where, under what headline am I going to put the different 7 naira loss? So this is just what. So there are things we need to address along the line of the fuel issue. Is it, if we are not, our refineries are not working, whether we like it or not, we are still importing finished products, and that is the pressure we have on the Naira and all the Forex and all that. So business, you can't stay in your office and decree that somebody must sell fuel. What if he just decides to lock shop? You withdraw his license or what? You go and do it, then you go and build your own fuel station and start selling and then get fuel. And now we're talking of removing subsidy and all kinds of things. It's a whole lot of things together, piled together. So you can't tell somebody who is making a loss not to try and recoup it.
But there's also a lot of talk, about racketeering in the business, about ATPs and PFIs, about a certain $100,000 that must be compulsorily paid, and about how that should be investigated. We had that conversation yesterday on the program, and I bet that we're going to continue it, especially if this scarcity is artificial, by imposed on the people by some people who want to make money.
Oil is always messy, and it's even more, when it is crude, it's even more crude.
Okay, let's have Malkwe.
A little sport for choice right now, thinking of taking. But let's quickly look at New Telegraph for you. And just one headline here. COVID-19 guidelines. PSC abolishes face mask rule at airports. Cancels coronavirus PCR irrespective of vaccination status. Orders airlines to resume in-flight meal services. Yuletide. Immigration to establish diaspora desks at international airports. IATA bemoans Africa's 1.9% passenger cargo traffic despite over 1 billion population. But let's not get distracted. The lead headline says COVID-19 guidelines, PSC abolishes face mask rule at airports. Is that a sigh of relief I hear or what?
That has spoiled some people's rackets. You get to the airport and they will tell you one face mask or two for 500 naira. Some people are making small business with it, but I think it's time overdue. Although I still wear masks, there are certain places I enter, I still put on a mask. Or even inside the aircraft, people should still wear masks and all those kind of things too for other people's safety. But then I think everywhere is being relaxed. So let's relax a little bit of it. So it's a welcome development for me.
Okay, so we should take a look at what the Vanguard also has on its front page. Something totally different. Politicians inducing voters with money, buying PVCs. That's straight from INEC. I mean, we've seen quite a number of stories on the coming elections, security threat, etc. But when INEC raises this sort of alarm, what are we to do?
Thing is, if you buy PVC, are you going to vote for the person? I don't understand. Is beavers going to capture you? And some people are still stuck up in their old way of doing things. But then I also feel that for somebody to buy PVCs, there's something he thinks he can do with it, and that is why INEC should be very careful.
Most certainly, we'll wait for how all of this is going to, because Mike Higini keeps saying there is a joker in the Electoral Act 2022. I guess we'll wait.
Amen.
Steve Uwosu, publisher and editor-in-chief of Nigerian Express, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Nice to be here again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, more on this and a number of other issues we'll raise after this break with our next topic. Stay with us.
Everyone here trying to get a glimpse of the 2 arrested gunmen and 3 others neutralized by the force as the State Commissioner of Police breached the Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma over an early morning attack on the state headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission in Owerri. The gunmen had launched an attack with a dynamite on the police post which killed 2 officers before proceeding to the INEC office along Port Harcourt Road, where they were repelled by the police and suffered heavy casualty, although parts of the commission's facility were destroyed from dynamite explosion. And back here at the police headquarters, the commissioner relays the sequence of events.
What they did was to throw dynamite into one of our hillocks. So they were able to kill 2 of my men and later proceeded towards Port Harcourt Road. So after getting to Port Harcourt Road, they now went to INEC office. Our men at INEC office now engaged them too, but there were so many. So some of them were now throwing dynamite and petrol bomb into INEC building. So that was why it caught fire. But because of the firing of my men, they were not able to go with one of their vehicles. So they left the Lexus Jeep there. So from there, they were now trying to escape. They don't know about our own strategy too. So they now gave them a hot chase. So we are able to neutralize 3, recover 3 AK, and recover 3 pump actions with some of their IEDs, and in fact, about 4 of their vehicles. So these are the 3 being neutralized. Now, we don't stop there. We now went ahead again. We have been able to arrest 2 alive.
Governor Uzodimma, who commands the force, maintains that attacks on INEC offices in the state is promoted by the political class who don't want elections to hold.
If you collaborate this with events of the past, where I have continuously said that what is happening in Imo State is politically contrived. Some people who think that they can win election, yet they don't want election. How would they then win? INEC does not need this distraction at this point and stage of our elections.
And away from the police headquarters, the resident electoral commissioner in the state assures that the attack will not stop the activities of INEC.
By the grace of God, we'll go ahead. We have called the policemen to come and help us. To strategize, recruit, and make sure that the policemen are there for those that will come and collect their PVCs in the various local governments.
Meanwhile, emergency services have brought things under control on the affected structure, and normalcy has been restored as the people of Imo State expect not to see a repeat of this dastardly act as they head to the polls next year.
And that's precisely where we're starting from this morning. The latest of the attacks on Imo State. Recall that we brought you that story, broke that story here on Sunrise Daily yesterday, and we were able to speak with the police public relations officer much later. Our reporters were able to speak with the commissioner of police in the state and also the governor in the state as well. But there are big questions as to what precisely is happening. I mean, these attacks on INEC offices are now clearly appearing synchronized and I'm looking for the right word now, but it does look like this has been intentionally orchestrated. So the question is, to what end? What do the people who are carrying out these attacks have? What strategy can be put in place to ensure that many more offices of INEC do not come under attack this morning? Well, we have with us Mr. Mike Ejiofor, who is the president, Alumni Association, National Institute for Security Studies, and also a former director with the State Security Services. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
How concerned were you when you saw the latest attack on Imo State yesterday?
Yeah, I was actually concerned, very, very concerned, because this is not the first time. We've had series of attacks. We had attacks in Ogun State. We had in Oshu the same day. And but I think we should be able to segregate the attacks. You know, the attacks in other parts of the country, apart from the southeast, you will be able to see the difference. The ones operating in the southeast, although the governor said yesterday that they were political, I tend to agree with him to some extent that, you know, it's political. Some of them operating under, you know, the criminal elements operating right under the name of IPOB. Recall that IPOB had also denied any connection with such attacks, and even the sit at home. So these are just criminal elements serving some political motives. And I'm equally happy. I want to use this opportunity to equally commend the Imo State Command of the Nigeria Police for not just killing some of these bandits, but also making some arrests. These 2 arrests, I think there are 2 that are alive. I pray the police also handles them well in conjunction with other securities to at least debrief them. Let's know what their intentions are. Who are their sponsors? These are very, very critical questions that must be answered, to forestall further attacks. There have been attacks too in Enugu, Imo, Anambra, and all these things. The way I'm worried actually is that these attacks are going to persist. From our own from our own analysis and trend analysis, is going to be intensified between now and January.
That's a very worrisome
It's worrisome. It's worrisome.
As you rightly pointed out yesterday, the police, some of their officers paid the supreme price.
Yes.
They lost 2 of their men while giving a hot chase to the people who carried out the attack on the INEC offices. But you said that we need to segregate the attacks. Why do we need to? I mean, to what end would that be?
Yeah, you see, these attacks are more now in the south. You recall that before the 2015 elections, the Boko Haram were also carrying out attacks in the north. But in the south, the attacks in the southwest, for instance, are purely political. They look at strongholds of their opponents to make sure those that the PVCs and this are destroyed, to deprive people, disenfranchise them from voting. That is just their aim. But in the southeast, it's quite different because these people are armed, they are killing people, they are attacking INEC facilities, carrying out political violence, attacking rallies and opposing supporters. So that's why I say that as campaigns hot up, we are going to expect more. But hope is not lost too. I believe that the security agencies and intelligence agencies like the SSS at this point must intensify efforts. And we should not leave this to the security agencies alone. We need to get the people involved because their purpose is to truncate this process. Because with the INEC measures now being put in, I think I was listening to Mike Egini when he was talking about some shocks, surprises that are with politicians. You cannot carry ballot boxes anymore. You cannot just do stuff or write figures anymore with the new process. So what they do now is to go to the areas. They have 2 options left now. Vote buying. And with the vote buying, the government has virtually plugged the holes, with this new fiscal policy from the central bank. The president, on his part, has assured Nigerians that if the Senate is going to leave behind its credible elections, INEC has given all the assurances. So, you see, it's going to be very difficult to manipulate the process. Nothing is impossible in Nigeria. I'm not saying they will not manipulate, they will try to. Like vote buying. It's going to be difficult to buy votes now. But I can tell you from intelligence that what politicians are doing now, they are collecting figures, numbers, that's account details of prospective voters, so that they do direct transfer. But I warn that they're also making a very big mistake. Such transfers will be monitored. You have limits on which you can do transfers. So if you transfer bulk money within that period, and now, you have to explain to the regulatory agencies like the EFCC what you are doing with such money. Besides, if you look at the voters, there's hunger in the land. And My advice is, these politicians are using us as tools, and they just want to buy the votes. I look at them as investors, people who are not even coming out to serve the people. So what they now do, if you transfer that money, my advice to the voters, if you see any money in your account, collect the money and vote your conscience. Because it's not their money. If they are really out to serve the people, they should be buying votes. So we have a lot of challenges. But my worry is that with these measures put in place by INEC, the government, we are going to have a lot of electoral violence and possible attacks on opponents. So everybody must be involved now. See something, say something. I think all the people should be involved in these activities of monitoring the election. We should not leave it to just the electoral agency and the security agencies alone.
Well, I think you've tried to differentiate between the attacks that have happened in the Southeast, especially this latest one, and other attacks that we have seen. You said something to the effect that politicians are trying to weaken the votes of their political rivals in their strongholds. Some people will say that that could be what is happening in a place like Imo as well. Wouldn't that be the same motive?
Well, that's why I say to some extent that I agree with the governor that it's political. Mm-hmm. But besides that, there are also some of these criminal elements parading under the name of IPOB, trying to the agitators. Have tried to, fortunately, Nnamdi Kanu, who is the leader of IPOB, has issued statements dissociating IPOB from these attacks. We believe what he has said. But you see, there are other elements who are also self-serving, issuing statements outside from the country, issuing people, telling people to sit at home. And, these criminal elements, once they hear sit at home, they want to exploit it, intimidate the people, harass the people from coming out. And you can see a viral video that is in place, telling this is our government will not agree. At times some of these things are simulated, to create fear and panic among the populace.
But somebody died, somebody was killed.
Of course. That's the point I'm making. Somebody was killed.
And the commissioner, I think, nearly lost his life in that attack.
There have been series of attacks and kidnaps too within the same area. That's why I say that these criminal elements operate. The security agencies need to intensify more efforts to identify and bring these people out, especially with this arrest. We must know their motive. You can see the number of arms and charms recovered from them. And some of them believe that with these charms, it doesn't make any sense to me that with these charms, they cannot be killed. It's foolhardy for somebody to believe that a bullet will not kill you because you are wearing charms all over your body. What's their end? They all died. But I'm happy of these arrests that have been made. It will serve as a lead to further investigation, possibly bring down these activities. That's a huge development, a success that has been made by the command.
So we could be having, you have also predicted, it's quite grim. Nobody likes to hear that sort of prediction. But if something has happened in the past, the likelihood of it happening again is very high. Given this, how the police responded to this particular attack in Imo, do you think that it could serve as a deterrent for any other, future attacks that could be happening, or that could be targeted at the INEC offices in whatever state?
I tell you that I'm very, very happy with this arrest and the killing of this, because it's going to decimate their ring. They operate in cells. They're not operating in one particular state. They have links. So with the break, there will be a kind of a break in their chain of links.
That is assuming it was the same group that is committing the attacks everywhere.
Most of them operate together. They don't operate in silos. Most of them operate as a group. especially within the axis between Anambra and Imo, Ihiala, Osu, and those areas, which is where they are concentrated in the operations, Olu, Osu, Ihiala, and Newi axis. So those are areas they operate. And with the activities of the Anambra state government, going after all these elements, the tendency for them to relocate to Enugu and Imo states are not likely. And
so that's within the southeast, but it doesn't affect other regions. For instance, the attacks that we saw in Ogun and in Osun State.
That's why I said we segregate them. Yes,
that would be IPOB. Is very slim.
No. Yeah. That's why I said that we should be able to segregate them. Those are purely political. I cannot say an authority, but they are sponsored by politicians. Especially when you have strongholds, of your opponents. You try to weaken that and make the election look incredible. That's what they're trying to do.
Okay, so I'm just wondering now, moving on, when we talk about security, what arrangements do you think should be in place? Because looking at the structure, even though the police did say that they had people on ground and they responded on time, there was still some significant damage done to the INEC office that we saw in Imo. We've seen in other places in Ogun, for instance, the visual that we just saw of the INEC chairman inspecting the office that was burnt and the PVCs, the INEC equipment and PVCs that were burnt as well. He has reassured voters that those PVCs will be reprinted. However, if INEC has to do that, we hope that they don't have to do that, too many times. It could bog down the process of preparing for the main elections itself. So what sort of arrangements do you think that security agencies should be putting in place to forestall any further attacks on INEC offices?
Yeah, that brings me to the issue of, I sympathize with INEC. What they are doing, they have tried as much as possible to see that this election moves on forward. And for now, these issues should not be left for the INEC alone. And besides, the police does not have the capacity and the capability to effectively cover all the areas, all the INEC offices. So I also recall that, during elections, the State Security Service, for instance, mobilizes retired staff to assist. And I expect too that other agencies should engage their retired staff. In the police, for instance, there is no local government in this country that don't have retired officers in the army, police, navy, and I think there should be a synergy. They should gather all these retired people under a platform, within which to assist in various communities, maybe at the local government, at the world level, to assist, because intelligence is critical in these, in pursuit of these solutions to our problems. So, apart from engaging the retired staff, like I said, I was just recently elected as the national president of the Alumni Association of National Institute for Security Studies. I've also charged my members to assist the security agencies. One of the critical areas we have to assist the security agencies who have serving and retired personnel. In states like this, it serves the issue of, rivalry, between the agencies. You can come to a state, you have fellows of the Security Institute in charge of being commissioner of the police, the state director of state security, correctional service, so the tendency for them to work together is there. So what I also suggest is that they should use these avenues, especially retired persons, not only retired officers. Mobilize the citizens. The citizens need to be mobilized to participate actively to ensure that we have a credible process of this election. Because if we don't get it right in 2023, it will be very, very sad.
When you say mobilize the citizens, what do you mean?
Like you have a local government chairman, they should be able to call traditional rulers in their areas to educate them, make them security conscious, what they should look out for during the election. Because the intention of these people is to frighten people, create fear for them not to come out. So they need assurances from government. You mobilize from the local government, the traditional rulers, churches, mosques, everybody to get involved, that these people who are doing this don't mean well for our country. So you need to talk to them and awaken their consciousness on their civic responsibilities, not only to vote, but to protect their votes and guard the process.
Mr.
Let's
Jofo,
flip this conversation out to Lagos.
Brilliant idea there, Mr. Jofo, when you recommend that security agencies, well, the authorities can enlist the services of retired officers, to help out, particularly because of the, weight and importance of the elections. But I wonder how that will play out, because it goes back again to the problem of funding, which is, evidently why the force is as slim as it is. And then to the attack on Osun and Ogun State, the attack on the INEC offices in those locations, you have analyzed that it is very slim, that it is has been carried out, by IPOB. But then again, if the analysis is the same as that politicians are attacking, the strongholds of their opponents, where they may their opponents may take some quantum of votes, is it the same, for Osun and Ogun State as well? Perhaps if you could speak to those two issues.
Well, I think I have to correct this. I said some criminal elements. I didn't say IPOP. I said some criminal elements using IPOP as a foothold, to operate. Because actually, the leader of the IPOP has dissociated himself from, the sit at home and all these attacks. That's not the way to go about the agitation. And that's, again, what I said when I segregated them, that some of these attacks are politically motivated, especially in their opponent's stronghold. And remember that when we started, I said we are going to expect more of these attacks towards the end of the year, because at that time, there'll be migration and movement of people from various parts of the country, all going back for the election. So they will be at home. Most of these politicians, operate outside their bases. I talk like members of the national, except for the governors and the members of the state assemblies. The National Assembly members, they all operate from Abuja. So this is the time for them to go home, to mobilize their people. And we expect escalation of all this violence, because there is no way, I'm not saying full 100%, but at least there's reduction of manipulating the process if we must take what INEC is telling us for now. It will almost be impossible for you to manipulate the process. So the thing is that they either embark on assassination of opponents, and that is why politicians on their own part must be very, very cautious of their own security. You go about spraying money when people are suffering, you have a major threats in your area, and you are throwing parties and all this. These are unnecessary. You're only exposing yourself to danger. So the politicians on their part must also take cognizance of their own personal security, because it's going to cut across, and we expect a rise, within this period on political violence.
All right. I'm also interested in, the analysis on the impact of the new fiscal policies on the electoral process. I'm going to follow up with that, but that will be after the break. Let's take some messages now. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're still on to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television, and we're still looking at the practicality of holding the elections in 2023 against the backdrop of the recent attacks on INEC offices and possible solutions, to some of these issues. We have with us Mr. Mike Ejiofor on the program. He's the president, Alumni Association, National Institute for Security Studies, and former director, SSS. Thank you, Mr. Ejiofor, for holding on. And before the break, I recall during your commentary, you also talked about how the withdrawal limits, would impact on the elections, and especially because those who withdraw in bulk between now and the time of the elections will have some explaining to do. That's spot on. But then again, recall that, at the advent of the announcement of the new fiscal policies, videos began to be surfaced online, of decomposing Naira notes found in trucks, and some only weeks ago found in bags and in certain, locations. There just may be some more of those Naira notes hoarded somewhere, even though the CBN has said that we've been able to mop up some old Naira notes to the tune of billions of Naira. What if those could also somehow affect the elections next year?
Yeah, you see, all those videos you see of decomposing Naira, we should subject them to some critical analysis. Some of them from investigation are just scenes where central banks were destroying money. Nobody has come out to tell you that this is the house of the person that this money was recovered, and no action has been taken. So we need to subject all these things to some questioning. Then coming to the issue of vote buying, like we said, one of the frustrations of politicians is this fiscal policy that was brought in. They cannot anymore distribute money. And some of them have started, and I warned some time ago in this program, that people stacking money in their houses. Now, some of them even went to the point of putting dollars in their houses. Now, how do you exchange the dollars? Are you going to distribute dollars to the people? And how many people are you going to distribute dollars to? Because some of them still have dollars stacked in their houses. So it's a very good measure that government has taken. And like I said, the frustrations of the politicians include these fiscal policies, and that's why they have resorted now to attacks and disruption of the process. But all hope is not lost. My advice is, before somebody credits your account, because that's what they're going to do, go and mark it. That's what they're going to do. They're going to transfer money to your accounts, or maybe they transfer to a coordinator who in turn will begin to distribute it. So you'll be able to explain to EFCC or all these financial regulatory agencies what contract you have with such people. And not only monitoring, we should follow its logical conclusion by prosecuting such persons. And in criminal law, for instance, where when you are convicted of an offense, you are barred from holding office for the next 10 years. But what do we have? Electoral violence, somebody is caught, electoral malpractices, some people are declared that their office, they should vacate their office because of the electoral fraud. The next election is contested. So I believe that one of the ways of checking this is such monies are tracked and identified. They should be able to prosecute those people and bar them from holding public office. And that's why I also come to the issue of this electoral offences tribunal. Government needs to fast track or create this electoral offences tribunal so that some of these electoral offences will be tried and it will serve as a deterrent to others. We have a lot to do because 2023 is a make or mar for us.
Let me say, Jeff, my challenge is on something that, we have also talked about a few times before. Looking at all the issues that you have addressed this morning, the attacks on INEC facilities, the risks to the elections, and this, CBN cashless policy and all of that, there are questions for me around, number one, the integrity of the intelligence gathered, whether or not intelligence is gathered, that some of these things are likely to happen, and how actionable they are by whom. Because I'm wondering how there would be an attack on INEC facilities, for instance, and we do not have intelligence that this is going to happen. I mean, you have just given us some information now that people will go cashless in their efforts to, you know, buy votes or whatever it is. I mean, going by what you just said now about people transferring money into people's accounts. So if all of this information is ahead, who should be taking steps to ensure that they do not happen, since we know that they are likely to happen? Who gets ahead to ensure that INEC offices are not attacked? Who gets ahead to prevent some of these things from happening? We know that the law says the police, the primary function of the police is prevention of crime, not detection. Prevention of crime. That's for the police. But intelligence is supposed to know that these things are going to happen. So how do these things happen? And it seems like it's just catching us unawares.
A very interesting question, because first of all these operations are intelligence-driven. The intelligence is not lacking. I can assure you of that. There's synergy. If you interview the commissioner of police, not in my place to begin to disclose what is happening behind the scene. And, the SSS, for instance, is shy of coming out to tell you exactly what they are doing on rare occasions before they come out, when it's absolutely necessary. So there's a synergy, there's intelligence exchange between the primary intelligence service, the SSS, and the various security agencies. And how do you know that there was not sufficient intelligence before this attack that also mitigated what would have been worse than this? So it's not something we begin to discuss on air, but I can assure you that it is sufficient intelligence. Don't also forget that several arrests have been made that the SSS is not coming out to tell you because it will compromise their investigation. Mm-hmm. Now, why I'm happy is that these people that were arrested yesterday were arrested during the act. So we need to protect them. The police, the SSS, they need to have a joint investigating team so that will provide further leads from the activities and preventing them from what is happening. So the intelligence is there, I can assure you.
Well, there is no doubt that the intelligence is there, Mr. Ejiofor. The question is around preventing them as opposed to having them happen, and then, we try to mend fences. For instance, all of the facilities of INEC that have been destroyed have to be replaced before the elections. They are definitely not things that were planned. So that's what the question is around. How do we ensure that they don't even happen in the first? Is there a way to... well, you talked about some being caught in the act, but some things have already been destroyed. I don't know if you think it is possible for us to get so ahead of this criminality that we catch them before they happen. We know that some of these things have happened before from security forces and from what you said, with collaborations.
But I think you are pushing me to possibly disclose some of the operational tactics and the strategies, which I'm not in a position to do because I'm not in the SSS.
Not necessarily, Mr.
And I'm not their
Ejiofor.
spokesman.
My apologies.
Now,
Not
the point
necessarily.
remains that...
Not necessarily pushing you to disclose. Is it possible for us to prevent these criminality from happening rather than they happen and then we begin investigation? Is it possible to prevent them from happening? These things have happened before.
There are so many. There are so many. There are so many that have been prevented from happening, which you are not aware of. It's only one that happens. I'll give you an example, like football, for instance. When people are playing and winning, nobody is talking. But once there's a sleep, everybody wants to kill the coach or the players. But the successes they make, you can see everybody's talking about Morocco now. Is the president only the African country? It's just like intelligence service. most of the things they do behind the scene to prevent what is going to happen from happening, you don't know. It's only when it happens we begin to ask, what did these people do? And the police, I can assure you, the level of cooperation and synergy between the police management and the state security service is very robust now, including the army, the air force. Everybody's putting heads together. You had the chief of defense staff the other day talking about politicians putting them under pressure to compromise the process, which they say they will not do. So these are intelligence-based issues that are discussed at high level before a statement is made. So there is a sufficient intelligence, and I'm happy that there's synergy between all the agencies. We have no cause to worry, but as time goes on, we need to intensify more effort. The reward of hard work for me is harder work, so we need to do more. That's the point.
Well, just one other thing that is already in the news that you are aware of is the ultimatum given by the DSS concerning fuel scarcity and supply and all of that, with that meeting held last week. Well, the ultimatum, 48-hour ultimatum, ended on Saturday. And there are those who are wondering, of course, you've heard so many people say, look, all of the threats being issued by the DSS is empty. One said by the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana. Another one came from Ipman yesterday on our program saying there's nothing the DSS can do unless some other things happen within the mix. Well, the DSS says they will take certain actions. In your opinion, what should Nigerians expect from the DSS concerning fuel supply?
It's the DSS, as far as I'm concerned, from the statement made by the public relation officer, was just an advisory, not a threat. So the issue of threat, for me, is an empty threat, does not arise, because the DSS has never issued any threat. Well, you ask me of intelligence. You don't know the intelligence the SSS has before coming out with that statement. I told you when we started this program that the SSS hardly comes out to make a statement and take it or leave it. 48 hours after, I can assure you, it's not assure you, you ask people who are in Abuja here, although the queues have not completely disappeared, but it has eased off. That shows that there is intelligence on what is going on. You know, there's a lot of fraud within the oil sector. And I believe, too, for the SSS to issue such a statement or advisory, they're going to follow it up. And the NNPC, a day after, issued a statement. They have released 1.9 billion liters of fuel. Are you not aware of that? So what caused that? And, you know, it takes time for them to transport all these fuel and to their various destinations. So I believe that the team will work out. And
you say that
just a point of clarification.
You say that the queues in Abuja have dissipated. Not so much for Lagos, because even this morning our guest on his way said he was almost caught in 2 of those. And as you can see on the screen right now, the long queues haven't so much dissipated. People are still very apprehensive about getting fuel and all of that. So the question really is around what should, and by the way, the DSS gave a 48-hour ultimatum. Well, sounds like a threat to me. If you say it's not a threat, that's cool, because you are a former DSS operative. So what should Nigerians expect from the DSS? What practically can the DSS do around this? We know, there are concerns about security imperatives and all. What exactly, from your experience, can the DSS do to arrest this situation?
Well, following the advisory from the DSS, I believe they're going to follow it up, with action, possibly inviting and by the time I believe they invite the people responsible, because they know before coming out with such statements, by the time they start inviting people, to give account of what is happening based on the intelligence available, I think Nigerians will say that. But the SSS too, is charged with providing intelligence in maintenance of internal security of this country. You recall, I think, Occupy Nigeria. If you continue to see these people in queues, the tendency for people to rise up against government is there. Whereas there is fuel. I agree, I sympathize with the marketers that they are not meeting up with the prices. But I think this subsidy issue is eating up everybody. And by the time the subsidy is and the market is liberalized, I think the issue will be resolved. But for now, we have to manage the situation until we are able to get sufficient fuel all over the country.
It's really interesting to see the DSS intervene in the fuel situation, and I think that the results which we will see in the coming days might continue to be varied until the root problem is eventually resolved.
Yeah.
But moving on now, I just want to know, because we're still in this election season, you have been able to tie almost everything together, from the security effect, the attacks on the INEC offices, which we have seen, which is in the area of security, to the policy of the CBN, talking about new Naira notes and how that's going to also have an impact on the elections, and even the stability of the polity, ahead of the elections, especially with situations like fuel subsidies or fuel queues appearing at different filling stations. This is December. It is the time when many people move around, to go and meet their loved ones. It's the holiday season here in Nigeria, and I think a lot of schools have already taken their holidays, as the case might be. What are your predictions for this season right now? Because right now, INEC has started the collection of PVCs. Distribution of PVCs. People should go and start picking up their PVCs. And we know that there is a lot of movement within this period. For how long would you say that INEC needs to keep this up? Because for a number of people, the time they're going to be making their holiday arrangements might be about now. They might not be able to pick it up, about now. We do not know where they intend to vote. It's not going to happen until the following year, when people have now settled back, perhaps at their places of work. For how long do you think that this distribution of PVCs need to go on for?
I don't have the details now, but I know that INEC has a timetable for distribution of these cards, both at the ward level, at the local government level, the state level. So I think there's sufficient time. They must have looked through, gone through it, within the program to ensure that everybody collects their PVCs. And again, like you said, this is a period for traveling. A lot of movements are going to take place. How many people, because of the security situation too, are ready to move out of their stations? If you come to Abuja, for instance, traditional weddings in the southeast are now conducted in Abuja. So how many people are going to travel to vote in the first place? So we might likely have a low voter turnout in the suburbs where people, except people living in Abuja, the politicians, of course. Abuja, Lagos, they are the politicians. But the people who are living...
Politicians often relocate to their places of origin.
Of course, they have to go back.
Yes.
They have to go back. And I'm afraid too, because going back means exposure. But you are representing the people, so you must go. Whether you are from Borno, whether you are from the southeast, the southwest, nowhere is safe now. So everybody must go home to go and canvass for votes. We conducted the election at the heat of Boko Haram in 2015. So whether we like it or not, people must move.
How worrisome is that for you?
They must be very, very conscious. They must be security conscious of the environment.
How worrisome is that for you as a security, as someone in the security sector, that nowhere is safe in our country except a few, maybe the city centers? That must give you cause for concern.
It's really concern, I worry a lot about it, but you agree with me that our security agencies too are doing their best under the prevailing circumstance. Now, you can see that the issue of the Northwest, the mass kidnapping, has reduced because the president gave an order that these people must be brought out. That's what I also expect between now and the election, for all the security agencies to rise up to the occasion and ensure safe route for the people to move about and, ensure this is not the time, for instance. Although you might have campaign rallies in some of these areas, but this is no time for frivolities when you are throwing parties, birthday parties, marriage ceremonies, and because these are things that will attract these criminal elements.
So people must marry.
And people must marry, but make it low key. Like I told you, some people conduct their marriages now in Abuja instead of going to the village. Some people who lost their parents, they cannot go home to bury. So, but we must confront the situation frontally to ensure that, because the primary purpose of government is welfare and security of the people. The situation has been a little calm until these campaigns. And like I always tell you here, that most of our security challenges are politically generated. And you see campaign period too, it comes with associated threats and problems. So it's not unusual what we are witnessing now. But especially, I am worried about the Southeast. And I think government should take certain measures, decisive measures, to ensure that that area is safe for a free election.
I think it's a fine place to leave it. Your advice to government to take decisive measures about what should be happening in the Southeast. We have to thank you so much for sharing your time with us this morning and also giving some very good responses to the situation which we're looking at. Mr. Mike Ejiofor is the President, Alumni Association, National Institute for Security Studies, and also a former director with the State Security Services. Thank you so much for coming on once again.
Thank you.
We'll take a break at this point and we'll be back shortly to look at something else. Please stay with us.
The 5th edition of the Nigeria Diaspora Investment Summit is underway in Abuja, attracting investors and local businesses ready to buy and sell ideas which are ultimately expected to impact positively on Nigeria's gross domestic product. According to the summit's coordinator, since its inception in 2018, participation has been on a constant rise.
NDIS has grown to be recognized as the surest platform for attracting foreign direct investment. This is very evident in the growing number of participants at NDIS and the returning participants to NDIS and the large number of success stories that have so far been recorded at the summit.
The two-day hybrid event will include 6 pitching sessions in the areas of ICT, agribusiness, education, real estate, health, and the creative industry. Remittances by Nigerians in diaspora contribute about 4% to Nigeria's gross domestic product for 2021. Total remittances for the past 3 years stands at $65.34 billion. However, 70% of this money is spent on households, personal use, and education, while 30% goes towards building or buying houses. While the banking sector is leveraging on this fact to pitch mortgage investment ideas, the ease of doing business is a major concern, especially with insecurity in many parts of Nigeria.
That aspect of security is everybody's responsibility. And why I say this is that everything we do for the business climate, prosperity is the antidote to poverty, and poverty dispels insecurity.
The issue of diaspora voting was stepped down by the 9th Assembly, and hopes are that it will be reintroduced for deliberations in the 10th Assembly. One of the summit's keynote speakers, who is of Jamaican and Nigerian roots, Dr. Chris Brooks, says a lot needs to be done to ensure diaspora voting is foolproof.
I think it all starts with strong cybersecurity in the nation of Nigeria. It's almost like the way of thinking about investment, right? Nigeria has to be strong and stable for the diaspora's investments to be strong and stable, right? So in the same way, Nigerian elections, cybersecurity, that has to be strong and stable here, which gives confidence to the diaspora that things will be strong and stable as you cast your vote.
Remittances to Nigeria's gross domestic product from Nigerians in diaspora makes up about 4 to 6% of Nigeria's gross domestic product, and the plan is to move that figure from about 4 to 6% to about 15 to 20% in the next 10 years. The question about diaspora voting is also in focus this time. It's not being discussed right now, but of course we'll be looking to see how the Nigerian Diaspora Commission will be able to pitch this in the 10th Assembly as the country moves into a new political era. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Well, in a bid to increase the foreign investment drive, we've been seeing the Vice President making quite a number of trips outside of the country in recent times. The latest was to Vietnam. He met with the Prime Minister, the Vice President, and also the President of Vietnam. What are some of the outcomes of those visits? This morning, we're being joined by Mr. Laolu Akonde, who is Senior Special Assistant to the President in the Office of the Vice President on Media and Publicity. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. I saw that you were also on that trip in some of the pictures that were released. How was the trip to Vietnam?
Well, it turns out very fruitful discussions were held between our Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and his counterpart in Vietnam. But not only did he meet with the Vice President of Vietnam, Socialist Republic of Vietnam, also had meetings with the Prime Minister in that country, and eventually also met with the President, President Park of Vietnam. And all of those meetings turned out very, very well in terms of how they see Nigeria and what we have seen and they have also seen is possible in terms of enlarging the relationship and deepening the ties. I would say this was a very, very successful visit.
What are some of the outcomes which we're actually hoping to get? I mean, when we're talking about relationships these days, there have been talks around how Nigeria needs to socialize more, African countries need to bond together more. We know about our traditional relationships with, say, the United Kingdom and even the US, as far away as it is. We've seen a budding relationship with China and the investment of the Chinese government in Nigeria through some of its infrastructure, let's say project deliveries. But when you now look more at the Southeast Asian countries, what precisely are we hoping to sell to them and what are we hoping to benefit from them?
Well, first and foremost, the whole idea is to present Nigeria even to the Southeast Asian region as a veritable destination for investment. Try to quicken to bring that realization. I mean, it's not that they are not aware, but try to understand to show that look, the opportunities are widening. The opportunities are quite very attractive. By 2050, Nigeria will become the third largest population in the world. Which says that we're going to have the biggest, the third biggest market. Talking about the AfCFTA, the African Free Trade Agreement, which is already in force. That opens up the African continent being the largest free zone anywhere in the world, 1.3 billion people. Nigeria plays a very critical role in that, so that foreign investors can come in and use Nigeria as a staging point to reach other countries in the continent, not just because Nigeria is geographically located in a place where it is easily accessible in the continent, but also because Nigeria has very close ties with other African countries, be it through ECOWAS, where of course Nigeria plays a very leading role, or even in AU. So it makes sense for a southeastern economic like Vietnam trying to take advantage of the African Free Trade Zone arrangement to use Nigeria as a staging post. Because if you are in Nigeria, you not only do you have access to our, about 217 million population, but also you have access to the entire African continent, about 1.3 billion people, so it increases the opportunity. So the point is that the vice president has made it the point of duty to try and show to the world, and in this case in Vietnam, that look, Nigeria is your best place to invest in the continent. And as a matter of fact, by 2050, it will be the third largest. And I think it's getting very good responses, and like I said, when it went to Vietnam, as a matter of fact, when the visit was being planned, when the president of Vietnam heard that he was coming, the president of Vietnam had to actually change his schedule. He was doing a tour around the country because they also realize and understand the very important position of Nigeria.
What areas of comparative advantage are we hoping that they would look at?
Okay, so specifically Vietnam, they have some comparative advantage in the area of agribusiness, agricultural processing. So the vice president went to their they call it the Vietnam Academy of Agricultural Sciences, where they do a lot of seedling enhancement, quite a lot of agricultural economics to try and see how to boost their own economy through agri. And one of the things that we found out was that they were one of the largest exporters of rice and a lot of processing. So we are trying to see how we can work with them in that area. Nigeria is also very big in agriculture. Agriculture has the largest number in terms of population. Job employment, and yeah. So we felt that there's a way in which we can collaborate. We can get some of the things that they have learned that they are doing, especially in the area of processing. Possibly, get a cashew processing factory here in Nigeria, run, by Vietnamese business people who are already advanced in this. They understand how this thing is done. They get the market here in Nigeria, they get the market in Africa, and they enlarge their business. And we also have the opportunity of having the businesses here. We can create more jobs for our people, and, on and on it goes.
Interesting strategy. It's a good thing that you mentioned the fact that Vietnam was also a large exporter of rice.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering whether that had anything to, whether that put a strain on our relationship with them in the past, looking at how we were looking to, at least reduce significantly the amount of rice we were importing from the South Asian countries. I do not know, now that we're looking at the area of agribusiness, will they really be seeing an area where they can, because what they're looking for, as you mentioned, is a market for their produce, something that'll keep their own people employed as well, and ensure that they also earn some foreign exchange. What advantage will we be offering them if we say, okay, come to our country and do business? How is that going to profit their own people?
Well, don't forget that we're talking about business. It's a very large space. The opportunities are endless. So yes, I think they produce about 42 million tons of rice per year, which is a huge. And we are saying that, look, there are all kinds of ways in which we can relate. They have people in that area, who have developed a business, who also need to expand their businesses. So if they come to Nigeria and start, for instance, like I said, a cashew processing factory, they get the opportunity of, being able to remit all of their investment capital and profit 100% unconditionally. They get all kinds of tax credit and duty incentives, so they're also making money, and they are making foreign exchange, for the economy. So the point is that there are always mutual benefits, and it's not just a one-way kind of deal. There are all kinds of opportunities, all kinds of ways that we can explore deepening the economic and trade relationship.
Let me flip this conversation out to my colleagues.
Thank you, Mark. Well, Mr. Akande, it's very, very encouraging. That there's someone, we can call it Chief Marketing Officer for the Federal Republic of Nigeria in the person of the Vice President, and the yeoman's job being done, cannot be remonstrated. However, looking at the business environment, the work of PEBEC definitely isn't something that one can push over or push aside. But then it doesn't still, there are many businessmen, women, business communities, organized private sector, who still have a lot of questions around the business climate in the country, even as at the moment. So one wonders if there are going to be separate rules for other nationals coming into Nigeria compared to Nigerians, who have investments, are doing business in Nigeria concerning the business environment. Because if they are complaining about, multiple taxes, federal and states, one wonders then how encouraging and how bullish that will be for them, those who are coming into the country.
I do understand that. It's the business environment, trying to make it a thriving environment for businesses, as you know, is one important duty, task of the Buhari administration, and that was why the president had set up the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, chaired by the vice president. And we've made, some bit of significant progress, in that area, but there's still a lot more work to do. And that is why it's an ongoing, continuous work. You remember that in 2018, Nigeria actually went up about 49 places in the ease of doing business World Bank ranking. And for 2 years back to back, Nigeria was also ranked as one of the top 10 economies in the world that is being reformed, essentially. So we have made some impact, and even global agencies like the World Bank have identified that. But there's still a lot more work to do, just like you said, for instance, in the area of ensuring that businesses are not, dealing with the issue of double taxation. And these are ongoing challenges that we are trying to coordinate, be it at the federal level and the state level. This is one of the areas that INEC is continuously engaged with to ensure that investors, whether they are Nigerian investors or foreign investors, don't have to deal with some of these problems that we can easily sort out. So what I would say is that we recognize these challenges and we are working on it. There is a whole PEBEC secretariat, that all they do on a daily basis, is to ensure that wherever we identify these problems, we make efforts to try and sort them. So it's an ongoing problem, but we are dealing with it almost on case-by-case basis.
Well, perhaps you may want to speak to some of the challenges and in ways in which maybe Nigerians or some other people can intervene. For instance, the federal government doesn't have any particular state of its own. The federal government doesn't have a local government of its own, and these businesses will operate within states and within specific local government areas. So one wonders what kind of, what's the level of collaboration or perhaps pushback that is coming, from the various levels. I know that the PEBEC initiative was largely in the area of creating some examples in 1 or 2 states across the nation. How much that has spread over the other states of the Federation, and you may want to speak to that. But what are the specific challenges, especially within the states, that business investors have had to report to PEBEC, and how are these things being being taken on, especially from the state authorities or the local government authorities?
Well, like I said, these are ongoing situations and to talk specifically about, what is happening in the states and the local governments with the federal government is one of the good advantages or the what we get to do in NEC. So the National Economic Council is where the federal government tries to coordinate the economy with the states, and they meet on a monthly basis. Now, besides that, so issues are sorted how their governors can bring up issues. We have federal government agencies represented on the council. But besides that, that one of the things that has happened in the last 5 to 6 years is how this government has dealt with the issue of MSMEs, which is where a lot of those problems, are seen. So we have the MSME clinics, which the vice president started, I believe, sometimes in 2016, 2017, where he goes to a state himself, bringing along the federal government regulatory agencies that relate with the businesses, NAFDAC, FIRS, CAC, Standard Organization of Nigeria, and all of them, so that we go to the states, the vice president is there, he brings all these federal agencies, the businesses come up in the state, they explain what their challenges are, and those challenges are sorted out on the spot. In many instances, those clinics go on for like 2 days, and the vice president comes, in one of those days to also be on the ground, actually interacting with the businesses. So that just shows you that we have a hands-on approach to these things. Another example is if you look at what we are trying to do in the area of broadband connectivity.
Just 1 second. Just before you move off the MSME issue, my apologies. Just before you move on off the MSME issue that is just raised, a 2020 report by the National Bureau of Statistics and Sweden indicate that regulatory pressures, difficult operating environment, and a number of other issues have seen to 1.9 million MSMEs exit the Nigerian business landscape between 2018 and 2020. I'm sure this is something that will give both PEBEC and the federal government some concern. What can you say to this?
That's just a reflection of an ongoing situation, which makes the idea of a continuous engagement between the regulatory agencies and the businesses themselves to be something that makes sense, and this is ongoing. Of course, there's no point to deny whatever the challenges may be. The point is that there is a deliberate plan, a consistent plan, a regular plan to create the opportunities that we encourage many of the MSMEs to stay. And there are also success stories, by the way, that we also try to highlight, But yes, there are challenges, because there are also, some stark problems that are ongoing, which we are dealing with. The point that I'm trying to make is that these issues are being addressed, and if you look at the size of Nigeria, we are just about 217 million people, and MSMEs form, perhaps the biggest sector in terms of engagement of the people. So you will find a lot of instances that you've quoted, but there are also many success stories, and we are very confident that there will be more and more success stories, because look, the market is just compelling, and the people are resilient, and so government itself will be, on its toes to ensure that these issues are sorted out. It's one of the things that the vice president has made, a very cardinal point of his own public engagement, is to say that look, we need to see. And he's talking about, he's talking to government regulators that we as government and the regulators, they must see themselves as facilitators of businesses. not trying to make money out of them, but to see how you can, enlarge the space, make it easier for them to thrive, and that is how the government benefits. It's not by front loading the tolls or the collections or try to make things difficult, because it comes back to us as a people. We need to understand that all those agencies that deal with the MSMEs, any agency that deals with business, the point is to make sure that you facilitate the businesses. And one of the examples that he tries to explain is that, look, your KPIs must show that you are encouraging more businesses to be formed. Your KPIs must show that must reflect the fact that businesses, MSMEs, they are being successful, and these are some of the things that we are working around on a very constant basis. And
the success of the KPIs, Mr. Konde, is also dependent on the business environment, which is what I'm going to refer to. But first of all, let's look at the feedback from the Vice President's visit to Vietnam. And I'm reading your statement here. The VP has had a lot of marketing to do, and it says here, according to the Vice President, GDP, that's Nigeria's GDP growth, has been positive for the last 7 quarters. And though it slowed to 2.3% on a year-to-year basis in the third quarter of this year, it was a 9.7% increase over the second quarter. Well, that would seem like a very good way to put it. This is how the MBS captions the growth rate. The quarter 2 2022 growth rate decreased by 1.4% points from 5.01% growth rate recorded in quarter 2 2021, and increased by 0.44% points relative to 3.11% in quarter 1 2022. So it would seem like, the VP is just trying to market the country, and rightly so. But then again, even this growth rate, according to the MBS, has been recorded more in the non-oil sector, not necessarily in the other sectors where we're looking to explore and exploit relations with Vietnam. Shouldn't the marketing be more realistic? Because in the area of agriculture has been seriously impacted by either economic policies or even, natural disasters that we've seen in the country in recent times. The flooding has affected rice farms in many parts of Nigeria. So what are your thoughts on this? How realistic is this plan to explore bilateral relations with Vietnam in the light of these more practical indices?
I think you already made a point. On the GDP figures, you will note, if you compare, other economies, even developed economies, that, our economies seem to have rebounded, bounced back quite faster, when you compare them to some other bigger developed economies. But to your point on the specifics on Vietnam, so like I said, if you look at the area of agriculture, and not just agriculture, by the way, even technology. So the Vice President visited the Vietnam Agricultural Sciences Institute, and also visited, one of the biggest software, ICT firm in the country called FTP. And, this is a company that was formed in 1999, and now by next year, they're going to be doing revenues up to $1 billion, okay? And so they are looking to Africa, who are they going to partner with in Africa, and did, say very clearly that they were looking to a place where, they can get quite good traction. And the Vice President made a very compelling case, which is the whole point, of all this trip, that look, whatever it is that the challenges are, you have a government that is forward-looking, you have a government that is hands-on, dealing with them, and then together with that, you have the biggest economy in Africa. As a matter of fact, we have the biggest financial market also in Africa. The capitalization of it is over $50 billion. So the opportunities are just, endless. In the area of technology specifically, between 2016 and now, Nigeria has produced 6 unicorns. In fintech, a unicorn is a tech company that is valued at $1 billion. $1 billion, not 1 billion naira, $1 billion. We have 6 of them between 2016 or 2015 and now. In spite of the problems in the economy, in spite of the headwinds that we had with COVID, in spite of 2 recessions, so that tells you that, it's just a question of where are you looking? Are you looking at a cup that is half filled or half empty? It's a question of attitude. And we are saying that, look, the opportunities in Nigeria are compelling. There is no better place to do business for anybody coming outside of the continent.
I think a number
than
of
Nigeria.
Nigerians will be first to admit to, the number of opportunities present in their country. I'm just wondering, though, isn't this rather late in the day, this marketing of Nigeria?
No, well,
what's the game plan?
It's not late. It's what governments do, and it's what we've been doing all over since we were here. And there's no point, slowing down. We have the job, we have the responsibility, the opportunities are there. And particularly for the time, with the largest free trade zone that is coming up in Africa that is already in force, is the largest free trade zone in the world, 1.3 billion people. So we're trying to explain to the world that, look, this largest free zone is happening. It's happening in Africa. Nigeria is at the center of it. Come and do business in Nigeria. You do business with Nigerians, and because Nigeria is equidistant in terms of location, and because of our relationship with other African countries, you do business with the entire African continent.
Country. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Mr. Laolu Akonde, a Senior Special Assistant to the President in the Office of the Vice President of Media and Publicity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for coming once again. We have a couple of mails from our viewers. This first one is from Dr. Peter Awodi, talking about attacks on INEC offices. He says the incessant attacks on INEC offices signpost a blatant attack on Nigeria's democracy and should be treated as such. It's no rocket science to know that these attacks are systematically orchestrated and the reasons are not far-fetched. Firstly, a typical Nigerian politician is hyper-desperate. Secondly, we still practice a zero-sum politics of winner takes all. Nigeria deserves a hitch-free elections come 2023.
Law Alpha Cross has this next one. No doubt, attack on INEC facilities is politically motivated. The security agencies should be adequately mobilized and motivated too to confront these enemies of state and decipher the real sponsors. Their intentions are evil and unpatriotic.
Olagunju Oladele is interested in the fiscal policies, and he says cashless policy, however noble and a welcome development, has failed to address the issue of currency use in rural areas. CBN can create a mobile bank for exchanging currency as well as establishing a digital banking literacy scheme with a detailed layout. Sounds like an idea worth exploring. Well, we'll leave it there.
Well, I guess that's much of the papers we can take this. Oh, did I say the papers? All the issues raised so far. Well, thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And I'm Alkwe Ogunyusi wishing you a great Tuesday. Bye-bye.